The ascent to superstardom is usually far more deliberate than it's been for Trae Young. You know, you look historically, outside of really Jordan, bursting off the scene in '84.
Yep.
A handful of others for sure if you run through the history of the NBA. But, Trae Young was a guy, when he was drafted, we're like, does he have the body? Can he absorb the hits? Is he strong enough? Is he going to have the green light? I mean, is he really as good as we thought what we saw in college? And he's gone from questions to, I heard Tim Legler say this morning, I liked him. I've always liked Timmy. Tim Legler said this morning that he believes Trae Young is the greatest combination all time, all right, of dribble, pass, and shoot. That if you combine all those in great amount, nobody's got a higher grade encompassing all three.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's quite a statement.
It is quite a statement. Can we refute it? I mean, really, who else? Jordan didn't shoot like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that Steph Curry quite passes like that. That's what's unique.
Kyrie, maybe.
He doesn't shoot like that. Well,
no, he doesn't. Oh, maybe he does. Think of all those shots that Kyrie would just kiss off the bottom of the glass and they'd end up somehow going in the hole, or the bank shots. Maybe Kyrie is close. Maybe.
Isaiah didn't shoot like this in terms of range.
Nope. No, it's an interesting thought, and it might prove to be true, especially if this series keeps going like it did last night. And everybody will talk about the shimmy, which basically was shooting practice for him, where he shakes Drew Holiday because of the defense that the Bucks were playing, which was completely asinine, that he just took advantage of with that teardrop in the lane shot.
Six of them.
I mean, when you have
six,
when you have the defender playing, I mean, at least 10 feet away from you. It's so easy for a guy like Trae Young to create space against the primary defender and then have open jump shots. So, I mean, they could have done that all day. He could have scored 60 last night the way that they were playing. They were trying to defend him. But then again, how do you defend him? Even if you don't do that, because he is so nimble and able to move around and maneuver through traffic and not lose his handle and still get up decent shots, even when he is contested, being a smaller guy. He's spectacular and he's fun. I texted you guys last night. I was like, dude, I love watching this kid play, man. He's my new favorite player in the NBA.
I mean, but the one thing about Trae Young certainly is in the middle of this conversation, but the one thing about the NBA that bothers me, and maybe I'm just pulling something from the previous generation, I'm not saying that you need to bring back the Rick Mahorn, who we'll actually have on the show today, or that style, like that thuggery, Bill Laimbeer, Oak, Mace, Xavier McDaniel. We know the renowned tough guys back in the day, right?
Yeah.
I'm not calling for that, but I do. The problem, to address your point directly, how do you defend him? You can't.
No.
Because if you get too close to him, you foul him.
Yeah.
If you sag off of him, he sticks a 25-footer in your mug. And if you really sag off of him, he crosses you up, and then he hits one of 6 floaters, which, by the way, is the most in any playoff game since they started recording floaters back in 2014, 7 years ago, basically.
It felt like there were more than that. It felt like there were more than that.
There were 6.
Yeah,
there were 6 of them.
It just felt like he did it every shot.
I know, but that's my only beef about the NBA. I don't begrudge Trae Young. He's playing within the confines of the game. Respect it. But I just wish you were able to play. I don't mean the hard fouls and laying guys out with clotheslines like Kurt Rambis got laid out years ago in the finals. I don't mean that. Just a little more physicality where you can get up into somebody's body and not get whistled, because then you'd have a way to defend Trae Young.
Yeah. You're right.
More so than you do now. There's no roadmap.
No, there is no roadmap for him, and he knows it. Like, you can see it. He has such confidence in everything that he does on every single play. Like, he doesn't think any of them are going to fail. There's never any question that he's going to be successful with whatever he does. Now, obviously, that's not always the case, but he just plays that way, which makes him one, hard to defend, and two, it's hard to get him off of his game. Right, because I don't think he feels negativity. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen him like just be despondent or down on himself. You know what I mean? Even
hell, somebody spat on him at a Knick game, and he basically laughed, and he went out and killed. It's like there's not
right.
much bothers him.
That's what
point.
I mean. Like, when was the last? I can't think of it. Even maybe in college there was a couple of moments, some disappointment when he was at Oklahoma and they didn't get as deep as everybody thought that he would. Maybe then. But since he's been in the NBA, I can't think of like a dour face on him.
I'm going to challenge on that. I feel like McMillan changed that a little bit. I feel like I saw some of those, I don't want to say petulance, but I feel like McMillan has accelerated his maturity as a player and as a leader.
Maybe.
With Pierce, his shot selection was bad.
Because he had free reign, right?
Too much reign.
Like he could do whatever he wanted with Lloyd Pierce. And that wasn't good for the team.
No.
So it's no accident that after Nate McMillan took over, this team is 37-16.
What is it, 77% win percentage? I think it is. Something like that. 77%.
Yeah. And you said this yesterday that he doesn't want to come back as
well, that was the report. Not
I know, but
directly attributed, yes.
But even if it's a report, like why in the heck would he not want to come back to this? Because they're only going to get better.
Maybe he doesn't want the grind, Teak.
Maybe, but
maybe he doesn't want he's got all the money in the world. He played for a long time. He coached for a long time. He's got to have $30 million in the bank.
Yeah.
He's got to.
And this report that BT's talking about, it's not saying he just wants out and wants to go sit on a beach.
No.
It's just that he wants to be in a different role with the Atlanta Hawks.
With the Hawks.
So, yeah, I can see that. That. It is a grind. But this team is only going to get better. I mean, DeAndre Hunter's not even playing right now. And John Collins is balling, and Trae is balling, and Clint Capella had 19 rebounds last night. I mean, he only scored 14 points, but he didn't need to score any more than 14 points. He did exactly what he was supposed to. And Horter and like Bogdanovich, these guys they fit so well together. Even though they're small, there's not like a big, imposing offensive threat. But they don't need one. They don't need one. This is a unique Atlanta team, man, and they're fun as hell to watch.
They even got a little contribution from Solomon Hill. This is what the NBA playoffs are all about, and again, in stark contrast to what the Nets got out of their reserves in Game 7. I know I've referenced this a few times, but it's applicable here because, Solomon Hill, who has had, a very nominal role with this team. He played, I think it was 19 or 20 minutes, had a couple of buckets, had a couple of rebounds, splashed the stat sheet a little bit. You get those kind of contributions, and eventually Trae Young, if this is a 6 or 7 game series, Trae Young is going to have, I would imagine, at least half of his games he's going over 40. I mean, that's just the way he's built. And flip this to the Bucks for a second. Like, Chris Middleton had some awesome moments last series, right? One game he flat out bailed out Giannis, right? But this has always been my beef with Chris Middleton. The fluctuations in performance are not conducive to being a legitimate, true, authentic second superstar. I mean, last night he's 6 for 23, 0 for 9 from downtown in a game that's decided, by a hair.
By 3.
That's what I'm saying.
You make 1 or 2 of those 3-pointers, it's a different animal, right?
0 for 9.
Yeah, that's bad. And
that's embarrassing.
His shot looked busted. They were all short shots. Like everyone was like a line drive. It's like, I don't know, maybe he didn't have his legs. Maybe he was fatigued. But yeah, you're right. And that's what I heard a lot today was, Chris Middleton is the reason. You always look for blame, even though it's a blameless situation because it's a team game. Chris Middleton was getting a lot of the blame. If he's half as good as he normally is, then they win this game. And it's probably not necessarily even close. He was just abysmal. So the question is, when you look at the Bucks, are you nervous or scared about this performance, or it's it's a drop in the bucket. It's one of those that you just throw it away and you come back and you play a much better game if you're Chris Middleton in particular, because Drew Holiday was great.
He was very good, Drew Holiday. Yep.
Right. Yeah. All the role players, they did their job. Chris Middleton was the only one who wasn't executing, and it's not like he needed to execute at a high level for them to win.
No.
He just needed to be average.
Yeah. Just don't be 0 for 9.
Exactly. He just wasn't even average.
Yeah,
so if you're the Bucks, I'm not necessarily worried. The thing that I'm worried about from a Bucks standpoint is defensively, you look like you didn't have an answer. And more importantly, when you knew that what you were doing wasn't working, there was no adjustment. You know what I mean? There was no in-game, Trae Young is destroying us, let's try something different. It was, let's just keep trying the same thing. And that's not good coaching.
Well, listen, I thought they did a good job highlighting this on the halftime show with Charles Barkley and everybody. I mean, Brooke Lopez in space against Trae Young is a recipe for disaster. He's about as mobile as a fire hydrant. I'm not saying he doesn't have a role in the NBA. He could shoot. He legitimately 7-footer. You know, he usually quality minute guy, smart guy, cerebral. But he brings something to the table. But you cannot have him below the dotted line, you know, as Trae Young dances and weaves in and out of the paint. Brooke Lopez looked horrendous. But I want to get back to Middleton for a second because I don't think, you asked me, should the Bucks be worried? Yeah, they should be. Because, number one, Atlanta is just really, really good. We are far past, like, the expiration point on cute little story. That ended with the Knicks. Because we told you, we told our audience that if they didn't beat the Sixers, that this was going 7 games. Like, we knew that they were going to fight and they had a chance. We knew their talent. And not just Trae, but the bench and the coaching, etc. But Chris Middleton, I mean, you go back to the Nets series, all right, where they could have lost. You know, let's face it, if Kevin Durant, half an inch behind the line, we're talking about the Nets last night instead of the Bucks. But in the series against the Nets, in sequence, 6 for 23, 28%. 7 for 20, 35%.
Wow.
12 for 25, 48%. That's his best game, by the way. 7 for 15, 46%. Second best game, I'm sorry. Then he goes 8 for 22, 36%. 9 for 26 in Game 7, 34%. He had 1, 2, 3, 4 games out of 7 where he shot worse than 36%.
Yeah.
And he's not getting a ton at the rim. He's a mid-range guy and some distance as well. That is awful. So I'm going to flip it back to you.
And it's a lot of shots too, BT.
Well, it's true. It's one thing if yes, you're right. One thing if you're kind of like Ben Simmons having a rough night, you're not shooting.
Yeah.
Which actually is probably worse because now it's really 4-on-5. But another thing, if you have a penchant for firing blanks and you keep gunning.
I know.
I mean, I don't know what's worse.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the game, I mean, he took that 3. It was just like, it's not going in. And it was an ugly shot. It was
not
like
worse than Connaughton's.
Yeah, true. Connaughton's didn't hit nothing. But still, it was like a line drive. It was almost like it was just, let me just throw it up there. It was like a desperation shot, but it should have been one that he, contemplated before he took it. But when you're cold like that, and I never played basketball, so I don't.
You did. You played in CC's charity game. You had that little backdoor sneaky layup you had.
You know what I mean? But when the game's on the line,
yeah,
and we have this cliche in our mind, shooters just keep shooting, man. Eventually you'll come out of it. But is that him? You know what I mean? Is he coming out of it if he just keeps firing at it? And the question was, he thought he was, and he didn't. And he wanted to be the hero, and it didn't end up costing him because it was a lot of things, but it contributed heavily to them.
I think it was most attributable to their loss. I mean, when your second best player is 0 for 9 from downtown and you lose by 1 possession, you can nitpick other things, sure, but Chris Middleton's the reason why they're not up 1-zip.
Yeah.
And listen, Teak, you'll have my back on this. For years, I have pointed to Chris Middleton and said, he's not that guy, which is why I've always been reluctant to embrace the Bucks as a viable championship contender. I like Chris Middleton, but I don't like Chris Middleton, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly.
I don't like him in this role.
Yeah, some games you look at it, like the game he saved Giannis you were talking about, and you're like, you need that guy, but you need him as your third, and especially when you have a team that can score at will, like it seems like Atlanta can. You need him as your third, not your second. You need someone more consistent as your second. And look, he'll take this to heart, but I don't know if it'll help because as we saw in the Nets series, it didn't really help. He was inconsistent in that series too.
How old is Chris Middleton now? What's Chris, about 30? Is he 30 or 31?
29 or 30.
Yeah, I got it. Hold on, I got it. Wait, come on, pop up. He's 29.
Yep.
He'll be 30 this summer. Chris Middleton is who he is.
That's right. He's not changing.
This is nothing new. Like, we're learning about players like Herter, and we're learning about, Trae Young, obviously different than Herter, but we're learning about these young Hawk players who are going through this process for the first time. We're not learning about Middleton. He's just reinforcing what I've long surmised.
Yeah.
He's not good enough to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, this is what could ultimately cost the Bucks a trip to the NBA Finals, and this plus 85.
Hey, by the way, you got my text. You got my message, right?
Which is now, this is an interesting
Jumped
story.
in.
So it was 385
Plus 385. Yeah.
The Hawks to get through to the NBA Finals. It fell precipitously.
Yep.
I mean, 200, right?
185.
185. So yeah, $200.
Yep.
Fell. That's a lot for one game.
That's why Sharp Tierney jumped in last night. No dummy. Even though it's not football season, you got to find the value where you can. I still think this series has a lot of depth and a lot of length.
Me too.
I really do. Unlike the series that resumes tonight, which just kind of has a sense of finality to it already.
That's right.
Maybe
Chris Paul is going to play.
He's going to play. Yep.
Kawhi is not going to play.
He's not playing. No.
No.
Now, we have seen the Clippers come back from this 0-2 deficit, so we've got to show them respect. We'll get to them later in the show. But unlike the series tonight, this one is not going to be over in 4 or 5. But last night to me was an ugly foreshadow of what I've long surmised would be the main reason why the Bucks come up short, and that is Middleton. It's not Giannis at the free throw line, which doesn't always help either, but it's more Middleton. One game, he's got a lot of real estate to turn this around. But again, the Nets, 3-4 games below 35% in the conference semis. You're 30 years old. This is who you are. So, one thing we need to learn about people, Teak, whether it's their personality, whether it's in their heart, what they believe, or who they are as athletes. Believe what they show you.
Yeah.
Like, why are we always trying to reinvent the wheel with certain players? This is Chris Middleton.
Yeah, it's not even reinventing the wheel. It's just kind of like you hope that he shows up in that moment. And when he doesn't, why do we keep believing that he is?
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.